Welcome to Woke House. When I was younger, I've been studying spirituality for years and years. And when I was much younger, I imagined that you could get so spiritual that your life would be problem free. And that I used to think that maybe pastors and evangelists and maybe super spiritual people, God would protect them from any trouble. I thought because they became a pastor and they were very spiritual and knew the Bible, that God would insulate them and put a hedge of protection around them where their life would be problem free. I also thought later that maybe meditation teachers or yogis or any kind of spiritual person would get to a certain level where there were no problems and no conflicts in their life. And that was naive of me. I realize now, because none of us will ever be, not in samsara, not in the sensual realm, not in this life, will we ever be problem free. There'll always be conflicts, no matter what happens. There's a story of a guy that wants to learn how to meditate, and he's living in the city, and the noises of the bus and the fire trucks and the EMS units and things going by and people talking, his neighbor talking on the other side of the wall, and so he can't concentrate, he can't meditate. So he sells everything, he loads up, he goes to India, he finds a cave, he cleans out the cave, he says, this is my new home. I'm going to spend my life meditating. And he sits down to begin his meditation practice. And suddenly the birds outside are squawking and whistling and singing. And monkeys are jumping from tree to tree. And there's all kind of jungle noises out there. And he realizes, he couldn't escape. You can't escape the world. The world is going to follow you wherever you go, and also your human mind is going to follow you. So if you can't be happy right here, right now, there's no place on earth where you're going to find happiness. So spiritual people aren't exempt from problems, but the focus is, after Buddha's enlightenment, he still had problems. He had all kind of problems. But the thing is, he didn't let those problems carry him away, and he also wasn't attached to the outcomes. As his Sangha grew, as more and more people started following Buddha, you gotta remember, like, first there was 10, and then there was 20, and then there was 30, and then there was 100, and then there was 1,000 people, men and women, following Buddha and listening to his teachings. Well, anytime people come together to do anything, especially spiritual work, there's problems. There are problems, greed and envy, and everybody sees things differently, so there's arguments. And it was the same thing with Buddha. His Sangha, his community would break out in schisms, conflicts, arguments over doctrine. People would say he said this, and somebody else would say no, he said that. People would elbow each other for leadership roles, assign themselves leadership roles, and Buddha didn't even want to be the leader of the Sangha. He himself didn't want to be the head honcho. So he would go off and meditate and just let them fight it out. And when they were done arguing, he would come back. So constantly there was these little, minor wars within this spiritual community, when actually Buddha taught peace, love, tolerance, and yet all around him, these people that supposedly were his followers were fighting and arguing over everything. And even his own cousin, Devadatta, I think his name was, his own cousin became a monk and then tried several times to assassinate Buddha. It wanted to kill Buddha and put himself as head honcho or big boss of this community. which is ridiculous because, Buddha wasn't even the head honcho. He wasn't even the big boss. And so why this guy thought he could kill his cousin and take over authority over the community is ridiculous. But here we are with a community of people being taught daily by the Buddha himself, and yet their own minds are driving them crazy. And even to the fact that this guy wants to kill his own cousin. So spirituality doesn't insulate you from craziness. The world is still going to come at you. But Buddha, he stood aside from that kind of thing, He didn't seek. In fact, if he probably was killed, it probably wouldn't have made a whole lot of difference to him, other than he didn't finish his journey, or he didn't finish his mission. He spent 45 years bringing the Dharma to our age, like all the previous Buddhas before. There's been literally millions of Buddhas arise on this planet, and Shakyamuni Buddha arose to give us the teachings of awakening. And so somebody killing him might have cut that short, but it probably wouldn't have mattered to him. So regardless, Buddha had all types of situations in his lifetime, just like we'll have situations in our lifetime. I can think of several things, like there was a guy named Finger Necklace that was like a bandito or a robber. This guy would kill people, rob them, and cut off their fingers and put them on a necklace. This guy tried to kill Buddha for no apparent reason, but Buddha taught the Dharma to him, and this guy took refuge in the Buddha and in the teaching, and he became a monk, and he joined the Sangha, and he gave up a life of crime. All through Buddhism, you'll see that. Even when in Tibetan Buddhism, people are attacked by demons and things like that, they don't use violence, they use the Dharma. They teach the Dharma to these demons and convert them to Buddhism, to loving kindness, generosity, compassion, and they convert and become docile demons, and they actually start protecting the Dharma. So all through Buddha's life, he had situations. I mean, he had a lady once brought him her child who had passed away, and she was hysterical, and she was begging Buddha to resurrect her child or give him some kind of magical medicine to bring the baby back to life. And of course, Buddha couldn't do that. Buddha was not a god. He wasn't an angel or a spirit. He was just a man, just a human like us. And so, and this is a famous story where Buddha tells her, go get a sesame seed from a household where they have never experienced death. And so he takes the child into his arms, and the mother goes off, and she goes throughout the village from house to house, and everybody has sesame seeds, but she says, okay, has this household ever experienced death? Have you ever lost a brother or a sister or a cousin or a child? And of course, every single household said, yes. I mean, we've lost our brother, we lost our sister, we lost our parents, we lost our grandparents, we lost children. And so there wasn't a house in the whole village, in the whole region, that had not lost somebody. So she came back empty-handed. And in the story, she takes the baby from the Buddha, and she goes away in silence and goes back to her family, and she buries her child, knowing that nobody is exempt from losing someone. No one is exempt from death. No one is exempt from grief. And, that had to be hard for Buddha to be put in situations like that, when all he wanted was liberation. All he wanted was peace. All he wanted was to see the higher things in life. And he had to be brought down to various situations where his mind was higher than the turmoil that he was dealing with, but yet he had to speak compassionately to afraid, nervous, greedy, ignorant people. They came and got Buddha many times when war was about to break out. So Buddha had to be very diplomatic and go into a situation and speak reason and say, you know, this is literally all about greed. You're fighting over things that don't matter. You're fighting over things that are impermanent. Why kill each other over water or land or oil? And so Buddha was always being called upon to handle situations like this. Also, even up until the end of Buddha's life, it's said that an old man wanted to give Buddha something, and the only thing that he had to give was a piece of pork, and the pork was actually rancid. But Buddha, out of compassion, knowing that this was this person's last bit of food in his house, Buddha took it out of generosity and kindness to this old man, and so that this man would acquire merit for giving his last bit of food to a Buddha. Buddha took this piece of pork and he ate it, and it was actually gave him food poisoning, and Buddha died. He was already in his 80s. He died from food poisoning because, out of compassion, he didn't want to say no to this gentleman that was, out of the kindness of his heart, trying to give him dana, or a donation of food. And so even up until the end, the Buddha faced trouble. He faced situations, and even up into the point of being poisoned and dying out of compassion, so that this old guy could obtain enough merit in his next life to find liberation from samsara. So I made this video just to remind myself and others that troubles will arise, conflicts will arise. The main thing you can do is know that it's impermanent. Everything changes. It's like this today, but it'll be different tomorrow. Don't let these things carry you away or trouble your mind or lose sleep over them. Be here now. Breathe. Be patient. Hold your tongue. And know that eventually everything is being given to you as a teaching. If you look, the whole world is a Buddha teaching you. Every situation that arises is the Dharma. You can learn from every situation in your life. But the main thing is, hold your tongue, be patient, be mindful, be compassionate, be loving, and be here now. Bye.